Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Joe Goldberg. I am a Director of Product Marketing at Snowflake, and I'll be the moderator for today's event. Welcome to the Snowflake Office Hours with edX, an online teaching and learning platform providing massive open online courses. Over the next 30 minutes, we'll spend time talking with Brian Beggs. Brian is the Manager of Data Engineering for edX, where he helps ensure all data is made available for timely analytics. Brian has over 20 years of experience in the data engineering and software development space, and Brian will be talking about his journey and success using Snowflake. As the event proceeds, please type all your questions into the Q&A panel on the On24 dashboard, and then at the very end of the event, we're going to leave plenty of time for me to verbally ask your questions to Brian. And of course, please ask any and all questions, as no question is off limits. So without further ado, Brian, I'll hand it off to you.
Thanks, Joe, and thanks everybody for coming today. First, let's see here. So my name is Brian Beggs. I am the Manager of Data Engineering at edX. I have a burning desire to help teams and people move faster, and my LinkedIn is there. Currently, we are working on a project to bring Snowflake in-house and to change how data analytics and how data is used here at edX. What is edX? edX is an online teaching portal and platform, a massive open online courses worldwide. Our mission is to increase access to high quality education for everybody everywhere, to enhance teaching and learning on campus and online, and to advance teaching and learning through research, which is a major component of what we use our data for. We offer everything from master's courses from master's courses to bachelor's courses, arts and the humanities, and professional development. We are currently now offering an online MBA in conjunction with Boston University. If you go to get an MBA at a brick and mortar type of institution at school, you're looking at paying about an average of $60,000 for that education. With an online MBA from BU, we're offering that for $25,000 through edX. We are hiring. I know everybody really wants to know that. If you're into education, you're into data, or just software development in general, we do have a ton of open recs right now, and we'd love to bring more people especially people who are interested in data into the edX organization. A little bit about edX and what our data currently looks like. edX has over 18 million registered learners. We have over 2,200 courses. They're currently being served, and that's from a variety of institutions: MIT, Harvard, Boston University. We have international partners, some in China, some Scotland, all over the world. We serve about 16,000 pages every minute. 10 million events per day are generated out of the system, and we write about 7.5 million database writes over the course of a day. So we're not maybe the biggest producer of data, but there is a lot of data within our system and a lot of data to analyze. Let's see. So let's talk about data processing at edX as it stands right now. A lot of the research and the things that we do have to involve combining Clickstream data, relational data, and pulling all of this data together to either support research initiatives, to be able to predict, to provide predictive models for students on edX, learner interventions, things like that. One of the big pain points that we have within the system is that it can be challenging to integrate all of this data together. There's a lot of work that has to happen up front with events. They need to be processed. They have to be laid out correctly into a format that can be consumed by our relational databases if they need to be joined with relational data. And the volume can be very high. And one of the issues that we've been dealing with is with our current systems is that we're not able to keep the entirety of our data available to be able to be joined with our relational data in a way that's cost effective for edX. And that's been a major pain point for us. And so one of the big things that we were looking into when we wanted to pick a new data warehouse and a new solution for edX was to be able to have something that would allow us to be able to bring in all of our structured data and our relational data, but also all of our semi-structured and our unstructured data, and be able to pull that in such a way that we'd be able to combine the records between two of these systems to really unlock a lot of the analytics potential that we have in our data here at edX. Take a quick look here at data processing currently at edX and how the data currently exists. We have event data that's being generated both about learner events and things that are happening within the courseware, as well as our clickstream of data that's coming through. We have application data, right, and it was being dumped into many different places, some of it going to S3, some of it going to Vertica. You know, we have some of these Hive jobs that's trying to pull in data from the relational data from S3, you know, then there's a lot of questions end up happening where what data was actually used for the analysis? Is it is the analysis reproducible? If, you know, we'll have people generating things out of our database system and then out of our Hive reporting, and they won't match up. And it's very difficult to figure out what's correct, or at least what is the most correct, because, you know, coming to something that actually is correct is very hard, but trying to figure out what is the most correct and what are the reports that are best served by the system. And then on top of that, we also have this SQL ELT type of framework that runs here at edX as well, where we have a bunch of SQL scripts that execute for reporting purposes and to drive dashboards. And again, getting that data to match up with some of the larger volume unstructured Hive type of queries, the whole system ends up being quite painful for everybody to use. That maybe one more point to hit on too, especially when you're talking about things like Hive and MapReduce and Spark, things like that, the barrier to start analysis and to start working on that data is very high. One of the things that we really wanted to focus on as an organization moving forward was, can we provide tooling and tools that are easier for all of our analysis, for our analysts to use, as well as the other engineers, support people, really throughout the organization. And what we tried to do was really to center on SQL as our lingua franca for doing this type of analysis on edX, so there wouldn't be such a high barrier to entry. Everybody uses SQL in here in some way, shape, or form, so it made a lot of sense to us. Once we, so this is still part of the process that we're going through right now, but bringing in Snowflake really helped us to be able to work through a lot of these things. We're able to put in all of the unstructured data as well as the structured and the relational data into one place. We don't have these disparate systems that are generating out metrics and some systems that are generating out metrics. It's really allowed us to consolidate and to be able to focus on one area for development and to be able to have one source of truth in the system instead of having many different sources of truth. And what this has really done is moved us from an extract, transform, and load type of workflow to an extract, load, and then transform type of workflow. One of the other tools that we've also brought in that has been very helpful for us is this thing called DBT, which is the data build tool, which has allowed us to provide documentation. It kind of acts as a master data management type of system. We can model data in it. And we can also add testing to it. So Snowflake in conjunction with DBT has really, especially with the testing, has allowed us to build a platform and a system that really allows us to have confidence in our data and confidence in the analysis that we're providing through our data. Snowflake integration has been really great. There are a lot of partners and that have made our jobs much easier than it was. Stitch Data being one of those, to allow bin log replication from our MySQL database systems and our application databases directly into Snowflake. Segment has a direct connector where they will take the clickstream and the event data that they're writing and write it directly into Snowflake for you. And then the team up here has actually done a lot of work with an open source Terraform provider project where we have brought that in-house, really enhanced it, and we're using that to generate all of our configuration as code so that we have a better idea of what's under management and a better way to manage the Snowflake system, which has really been great for us as well. In addition, I will say that working with Snowflake has been really great. They have been there for us to answer questions along the way, to really help us in the process of bringing Snowflake in. They worked with us to do an MVP, which was really super helpful to make sure that the technology and the things that we were doing were going to work for edX. The documentation is really great. And again, their staff has just been there through every step of the process to really help us bring this to fruition here. Just a few closing thoughts about Snowflake. Migrating data to Snowflake has helped us to better understand and analyze our data more quickly, and I feel that our iteration cycles have really tightened up, and that we're able to work on and generate a lot of the reporting and the analysis faster than we have in the past. And just to these last 3 points, it's great to have all our data in one place. SQL really has become our lingua franca and has been something that we right now, we do have some PII restrictions, but we basically just give support access to certain databases that they need to be able to do their job. And instead of them having to file tickets with the DevOps team or anybody else, we've just been allowing them to go in there and be able to search for the data that they need, which has been a big help for us. Snowflake in conjunction with DBT has really allowed us to have a full understanding of what our data lineage is, and we're able to track data as it flows through the system, have that data tested, and to have confidence in the analysis and in the reporting that we're generating. And that's all I got. Back to you, Joe.
Great. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate it. And just a reminder for folks on the line, because this is an office hours type of format, a lot of the content here is going to be your questions being posed to Brian. So a friendly reminder, we're going to move to the sort of the Q&A part of it now, again, kind of like the high school university office hours. So go to the Q&A panel in On24 and ask any question you have there. No questions off limits. And I'm going to go ahead and take a look at the Q&A coming in and then verbally relay it back to Brian. But I guess that one question early on I can have for you, Brian, is you mentioned a couple of different sort of integration / ETL tools, Stitch, Segment, Terraform. Maybe just elaborate a little bit on why you're using those three and what sort of data sources that they're bringing into Snowflake.
Yeah, so maybe let me start with Stitch. So Stitch is a partner that offers essentially, we could write bin log replication or some type of replication to be able to pull these MySQL and different database systems in, or do those extraction type of jobs. What Stitch really provides is just basically a software as a service that allows us to do those that E part of the ELT, right, the extraction part. So they have connectors for systems like Salesforce, for MySQL, for NetSuite, Oracle, different things like that. So it really allows us to focus on being able to build the reporting and the features that the business needs, and not so much worried about how we're having to extract data from some of these types of systems, which has been super helpful for us and allowed us to focus on the right thing. What were the other two? So I had Stitch and then Segment. So
and Terraform.
And Terraform. So Segment is Segment is a company, again, is a software as a service that basically will allow you to do clickstream tracking as these streams. But what it really is it allows you to put different streams of data from different sources into different outputs. So we might have clickstream data. Our use case, right, is that we're taking that clickstream data from Segment, we're streaming it into our Snowflake database for analysis. But we can also then, via Segment, take that clickstream data and we can stream it to our email partner, to other partner institutions, and things like that directly in the Segment or in the Segment UI, without us again having to do a whole bunch of work with setting up queues and Kafka and managing that infra itself. Segment really kind of gives us the interface and the things that we need necessary to be able to do those things. Terraform specifically, so Terraform is a configuration as software type of tool. And I think I saw a Segment, our Terraform question here directly. How are you integrating Terraform with Snowflake? What are you using Snowflake with Terraform? So basically what we're managing with Terraform, so we're managing things like users, groups, roles, basically any type of admin things that you would typically have to do through the UI. We're actually managing it through Terraform. And really the real reason for that is that it makes Snowflake, or really, right, Terraform's actually came in through AWS was the first thing that Terraform really put under management. So it's really just a way to manage your resources without having to go into the UI and do it, and have all of your resources listed out in code. So it's a little bit easier to manage and a little bit easier to audit.
Gotcha. Another question came in. Has dbt been running stable with Snowflake?
We haven't had any issues with it to this point. dbt has been a big boon for us, but no, we haven't had any stability issues or anything like that.
Gotcha. And then another question came in. I'll try to sort of Snowflake transit it to Snowflake speak, but with Snowflake, of course, you can create different virtual warehouses which have compute and assign them to different workloads. So how did you do that at edX? How did you create different sort of warehouses for different BI jobs or departments or ETL workloads?
Yeah, so that's another thing that is also under Terraform management for us. So I think that we've assigned roles to particular users. Databases are essentially, I believe, assigned to roles here. I'm looking at the teammate that I have in my room with me to see how she's shaking her head, so I think I'm talking correctly. And then we essentially assign warehouses to roles, and different roles can bring on different warehouses, right? It's all managed in Terraform. Does that kind of answer the question?
Yeah. And I guess on that note, related to the deployment, do you know roughly how much data you have in Snowflake and how many warehouses you have spun up?
So I believe that I want to say that we typically use around 3 to 4 warehouses right now. We have one warehouse that's specifically dedicated to just loading of data and having the extraction and the loading types of, all the loading type work is handled through one data warehouse. And then we basically have been assigning warehouses by team, so that we can kind of keep each team's work kind of segmented into their own buckets and own areas. That said, I think that as we continue to grow our capacity and things here, there's enough flexibility in the system that we can do things where we might assign warehouses to particular jobs, depending on how much compute resources they take and things like that. But right now, we're kind of just split up by team, really.
Gotcha. And another one here is, did you move your data to Snowflake with no data model changes and no data transformations until the data had been loaded into Snowflake?
Correct. So our goal here has really been and I don't think this is going to work for every use case, but at least for us, the majority of, say, the application databases, things that we wanted to pull in the event data, we do just load those data sources raw in there. And then we apply the transforms to those data via dbt after the data is actually into the warehouse. That's obviously not going to work for every use case, as you are going to have some systems where perhaps a transformation really needs to happen to the data to be able to fully use and understand it. Because, I think we know that these MySQL type of systems and application databases can be a little bit state, and then there's some interpretation that might happen at the application level. One of the ways that we've been dealing with and handling that is, the edX isn't terribly large. I think that we're maybe around 225 people overall. But we, on Martin Fowler's blog earlier this year, there was a great post about data meshes, and the woman who's wrote it name escapes me, unfortunately, but it's a great read. While perhaps we haven't fully kind of dived in onto the concept of data mesh, what we have really committed ourselves to is building the tooling as a data engineering team and then pushing that tooling out to the edge. So instead of, say, having our data engineering team build these data warehouse or data marts, rather, instead of having data engineering build the data marts, what we're doing is we're having the individual teams who are working in these data marts and are familiar with the application domain in that space build those data marts using the tooling that we're providing, which has been successful for us in the way that they just know more about what their data actually means, and I think that's a tough part for any data engineering group.
Gotcha. Okay, another question is, and if you kind of addressed this one, but does Snowflake act as the primary data warehouse for edX, and how do you think about Snowflake in your BI tech stack?
Yeah, so Snowflake is our primary data warehouse. We use it to drive, or we're in the process of using it to drive our visualization engine, which is Tableau right now. Our reports are generated out of our reports are essentially generated out of these data marts that we're building with DBT. Yeah, Snowflake it has become our analytic engine bread and butter.
Gotcha. Have you used data sharing, or do you plan to use it?
So we do have a partner integration coming up with an email vendor that we're considering using that we are probably going to try to use Snowflake data sharing, at least on their end. I think that we're probably going to be the recipient of the data sharing more actually than sharing the data with them. But yeah, it is something that's in the works, but not something that we've really done just yet.
Gotcha. Okay. And for people on the line who are kind of newer to Snowflake, what that's referring to is Snowflake has built-in data sharing capabilities where it's easy to take a database, a table, any object, frankly, in Snowflake and share it with an external or internal party. Even if they don't own Snowflake and have their own Snowflake account, you can share it with them in a zero copy manner. So you don't have to copy the data over to them. So it's really easy. It facilitates data sharing. Another question came in here. I think you kind of touched on this, but it's asking, are you ingesting streaming data into Snowflake? And if so, how many events per second are you ingesting?
So yes, so we are currently ingesting the segment Clickstream data into Snowflake. I want to say that let me look here real quick. I believe that we're somewhere in the neighborhood of around 10 million events per day on that. I don't know what that breaks down to by the second. Still
pretty good number.
Yeah, so, I'd have to do the math on that, but yeah, we're pulling in about 10 million events per day streaming.
Excellent.
And so, for what it's worth, and maybe I just want to point out one thing, Joe, and that's really with zero work on our end, right? Like that is all Snowflake and Segment. Gotcha. So that didn't require anything from us, just the integrations that were already available.
Yep. Are you using Snowflake's Snowpipe feature for auto ingestion?
We are using Snowpipe actually for auto ingestion from events. So we have two classes of events here that are fired at edX. One of those is like the Clickstream data that comes through Segment. The other event stream that we have is the application layer Clickstream and the learner events and the things that are actually happening within the courseware. That data that's in the courseware, we are ingesting via Snowpipe. The way that our process works basically is that our web nodes shut data off into S3, and we're just using Snowpipe to pick up that data and load it into a schema.
Gotcha. And for those, again, kind of new to Snowflake, Snowpipe, it's our serverless auto ingestion utility where basically Snowpipe can monitor an S3 bucket, or let's say an Azure Blob Storage bucket. And when new files are landed in that cloud-based storage, the cloud provider sends a notification to Snowflake saying, hey, there's new files here. And then Snowpipe will go in and auto ingest them and put them into Snowflake tables. So it's kind of a seamless way to stream data into Snowflake from a cloud-based storage. And it complements other technologies as well. And so a reminder to folks, again, we have really good Q&A, so keep it coming. Go to the Q&A panel in on 2.4 and ask your questions there for Brian. The next one, I'll handle this one quickly, then I'll give you some more, Brian, but it's asking about the architecture behind Snowflake. And so Snowflake, we run on the three major cloud platforms, so AWS or Azure or Google Cloud platform. We run on all three of them. And we essentially leverage the underlying hardware of those cloud providers. And we have our own sort of proprietary software that kind of stitches it all together. But we will leverage, for example, in AWS, we leverage EC2 images for compute. We leverage their S3 for storage. And then we have our own proprietary services layer, which coordinates across all of storage, all of compute, and everything else to enable things like automatic unlimited scale. So we can, scale up and down your warehouses and add clusters to them on the fly automatically. We can make it so that any end user can access, any piece of data at any time. So it's the combination of the cloud provider and our software that really gives Snowflake our unique architecture and our elastic scale. A question for you then, Brian, is when you were looking at Snowflake, and you kind of touched on this, but you probably evaluated some other cloud platforms. I guess my question is, did you, and why did you pick Snowflake over some of the other cloud data warehouses?
Yeah, so as we were going through this process, we evaluated Google BigQuery, we evaluated Redshift, and we evaluated Vertica. So a couple of things here. So it really, at the end, to be honest, it really kind of came down to two systems to choose for us. So one was Google BigQuery and really kind of versus Snowflake. One of the big reasons we actually went for Snowflake over BigQuery was cost. I think that we had found that using Google BigQuery for about 3 to 6 months up here, that we had a lot of difficulty just controlling costs, right? There's not a lot of cost controls. It's very easy to accidentally write a query that can go and run for a very, very long time. And that was the one of the big reasons we didn't go for BigQuery. In general, with Snowflake, I mean, one of the big pluses with us, right, was the ability to really deeply query on the semi-structured data and be able to quickly and easily join it up with the structured data and the application database data was really one of the big wins for us, right? Then the scalability, right? Like the t-shirt sizing and being able to select what your cluster size is and be able to size it to a job correctly was really a great feature, I think, that we really liked as well.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. And on that note, you mentioned cost control. How are you controlling costs with Snowflake?
How are we? So to be honest with you, we're not really controlling costs just yet. We're kind of at a point in this project where I think that we've identified that it's more important for us to get a lot of win and to try to get as much value out of this as we can right now. So to be honest with you, we're not really too concerned about cost here at the moment.
Gotcha. And by the way, I should also mention for newer folks on the line, Snowflake does have the ability to auto-suspend, so you can create all kinds of virtual warehouses to do things like ETL jobs or to run queries and BI tools. But those can be set up to auto-suspend, so they're not being used. They literally suspend themselves. They don't use any sort of underlying EC2 or Azure VM compute, and so you're not charged for them essentially. So it's a really fair sort of pay-as-you-use model. Let's hear another question came. Oh, sorry.
Hey, Joe, could I say one thing, too? We talked about features that really tipped us in Snowflake's balance. One of the other things, too, was I forget what you guys at Snowflake call it, but the 90-day look-back type of functionality where we're able to
time travel.
Yeah, time travel. Time travel was a really nice feature that we liked as well, so that we have the ability to look back at what the state was on any of these tables over the past 90 days, and we really liked that as well.
Yep, perfect. Okay, so let's see here. This one's kind of specific to Stitch. It says, did you evaluate other tools before deciding to go with Stitch? Did Stitch have better support for Snowflake versus other vendors?
Honestly, I'm sorry. I don't know if I have a great answer for you there. I don't recall what other evaluations we did when we looked at Stitch. I'm sorry.
Gotcha. And this one's more of a generic question. I'll take a cut at it, and you can add into here, Brian. But the question is, any connectors to get SAP data directly into Snowflake to have users access to more live reporting? And I think at a high level, most ETL tools have connectors into things like SAP. So you can use an ETL tool to pretty easily put it into Snowflake in near real time, or you could write scripts or use ETL tools to take the data in near real time from SAP onto cloud storage like S3, and then something like Snowflake, Snowpipe could then auto-ingest it. So you could get near real time SAP data into Snowflake. There's just a couple ways to approach it. And I guess, Brian, if you want to add to that, go for it.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I think that was one of the reasons that we chose Stitch and Snowflake, right? Again, was just that there was just so many different systems that were available for that extraction and loading, and really to help keep our team focused and not worry so much about having to build each of these integrations for these like well-known SAP type of systems or well-known third-party type of systems. So yeah.
Gotcha. And a question for you is how many people do you need to run Snowflake? And for an average organization, how many people would you think they need to run Snowflake?
Oh boy. So we have a single on-call person each week that kind of handles this. I would say that not very much of their time is actually spent dealing with Snowflake or Snowflake type of difficulties or issues, right? I think a big part of that is that we've brought the management of Snowflake under Terraform so that we're able to do it in code. You know, if somebody needs access to something, it's just very easy to put the pull request up and have Atlantis or whatever you're running for your Terraform provider auto merge it for you. You know, so we're not really spending very much time with Snowflake, and that's compared to right now, at least with our Vertica system, I want to say that we have about 15 to 17 Vertica incidents per week that we need to manage.
Gotcha. Yep.
So it's a big difference.
Yeah. I hear you. And I should mention to folks on the line, I did mention our we have a services layer of software that Snowflake uses to orchestrate a lot of the storage and compute, but it also does a lot of the maintenance. So we're sort of that invisible DBA under the covers. So with Snowflake, you don't have to do things like partitioning or vacuuming or re-indexing. You don't do any of that. So it's very much a low maintenance solution with Snowflake. And of course, we're in the cloud, so there's no hardware issues to deal with.
It really, I'm sorry, Joe. It really was one of the major deciding factors as well. I mean, that wasn't really for Snowflake, but whatever solution we were going to pick was going to need to have very, very low maintenance.
Gotcha. So we'll do a couple more questions here because the questions are still coming in and they're really good. So we'll go a couple minutes over here. So Brian, what was sort of a challenge in the implementation that you didn't originally anticipate? Maybe it wasn't technology, maybe it was political. But what was a challenge you ran into that you didn't see coming as you did the migration/deployment of Snowflake?
Let me think here for a second. I think that our biggest challenge probably was more of a political type of situation than it was. I think that I feel like I have a great team of software engineers who really are just very sharp and really know what they're doing. I think our challenges were more political, to be honest with you. I think there were some questions like, well, Snowflake's a newer company, and, do we really want all of our data managed off-site? One of the ways that we kind of worked around that first was by working with Snowflake to provide the MVP to show that there was value there, and I think that their help was invaluable. I think that our Snowflake rep here, Nick, even helped me write up some slides to be able to present to our senior technology leadership that was also really helpful too. Like, it was really a great partnership. The other thing that we did as well is we actually hired some outside consulting to come in who had used Snowflake before and was also really able to help set us in the right direction and also kind of provide some of that peace of mind, I think, that some of our senior leadership was looking for as we went about the selection as well.
Gotcha. A question here is, how are you handling schema evolution?
How are we handling schema evolution? Good question. So DBT does help us a bit with this, right? As the schema does evolve over time, the schema is well documented within a code repository and a code base. So we do, and then all the trappings of good code come along with that. We have source control, we have the ability to roll back, right? So I think that DBT has been super helpful in that. I'm probably not going to have an answer here other than that, though, just because we are, we're only 9 or 10 months down on the project right now. So there's still a lot of that type of thing is really evolving for us still.
Okay, perfect. I'll give you one last question here, Brian. How long did it take from when you first put data into Snowflake to start deriving insights?
Let me see. I want to say probably about 2 or 3 months for us. I think that part of the reason, I think that we could have gone much quicker than that, to be totally honest. But when we started out the project, we really went in with the focus of knowing that, hey, this data mart is going to, or this data warehouse is going to be around for a really long time for us, right? This is something that we're going to make a 5-year investment of minimum in. And with that in mind, we really headed into the project knowing that we wanted to have these things as, configuration as code and to have Terraform managed and to really make sure that we were setting up the system in such a way that it would be sustainable over that 5-year period. So, I would say that there was a lot of pre-work that went in just to making sure that we had things set up the way that we wanted to have them set up. That said, I would say that once the data started flowing in the system, we had the application data as well as some event data. I think it was a matter of probably weeks here, probably less even.
Gotcha. Perfect. Okay. Well, with that, we've kind of gone a bit over. We've addressed most of the questions. So we're going to go ahead and wrap up the Q&A at this point and the office hours. So just an administrative note to folks in line that this was recorded. It'll be sent to people via email after we finish up here. You should probably get it, I think, within 24 hours or so. So with that, we'll wrap up the office hours. A big thanks to Brian and edX for the great content. Thanks to all of you in the audience for the great questions. We'll see you at the next office hours in 2 weeks. And in the meantime, I'd encourage all of you to visit snowflake.com to learn more about us and to see our case studies and videos. And if you haven't done so yet, on the homepage, with a single click, you can sign up for a free 30-day trial of Snowflake. And as part of that, you also get basically a tutorial which teaches you how to load demo data into Snowflake, how to run queries on it, et cetera. So you'll have that aha moment of Snowflake literally within an hour or so. So I recommend you do that as well. So with that, we are all done here. Thanks, everyone, for your time.